After watching the TED Talk by Dr. Carpenter, you were asked to write a problem solution paragraph. In other words, relate to the issue that she brought up in her talk about the lack of women in engineering in the United States, and to apply that issue in problem and solution in Israel. So you were asked to write 2 paragraphs. The first 2 to 3, 5 sentences in which you explain the problem, and in the second paragraph to describe a possible solution. What we're going to look at in the sample work here are a couple of things. We're primarily going to focus on whether there's a topic sentence or a main idea, whether there are major ideas along with minor details supporting these major ideas, and the format of the paragraph. Are all the sentences together? So let's take a look at one example. Okay, so if we look here and we just say in sample 1, 2 paragraphs. So where's the first paragraph? Where's the second paragraph? Where does it start? Where does it end? When I read it, I can figure it out that this is probably 1 paragraph and this is probably 1 paragraph, but it doesn't look like 2 clear paragraphs. And it's very easy to do that. All we have to do is get rid of all of these spaces. Delete here, delete, 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 and now basically I see 2 paragraphs. So my question is going to be, does it discuss the problem in the first paragraph? Does it give a solution in the second paragraph? So if we look here, high-tech and startup company managers almost all over the world are men. Does it sound normal? For some people, maybe yes, but for others, this is not the picture they want to see in 2017. Girls do not choose to study science because of various reasons, but not because they're not able to study those kinds of fields. So yes, we have the problem here, but here the one thing that I would include here is that it relates to Israel. Here, when we do understand that he's relating to Israel. In my class, there are only 5 girls out of 35 students. So his class or her class is 5 out of 35 in Israel. What I think is that the government needs to start with a massive campaign which call girls to join the science studies, even if they give the girls extra money like or dorms for free, etc. To sum up, I think that in order to solve this problem, we must act now and even to invest money to make it happen. So if I look here and I go back and say, okay, I've got a problem here and I've got a solution. That's really good. I've got a main idea and I've got supporting information. So when I look here, I see there are 5 girls. That supports the idea that there are not enough girls who choose to study. So basically, once I clean up this piece of writing and put it into 2 paragraphs, it becomes very, very clear. Let's look at the next one. And again, we have a very similar situation. Do we really need to write paragraph 1 and paragraph 2? No, we don't. We can just get rid of that. It doesn't need to be there. So I'm just going to cross it out for right now, but we know it's gone. And then I look and say, the same thing here. Let me get rid of all of these spaces because we do not want to start each new sentence on a new line. And here, just by clicking on delete, I don't want to write everything here. So again, I have to look. Does paragraph 1 present the problem? Boys are more interested than girls in subject sciences. That much till they became called male professionals. I'm not relating to the grammar here. There are problems with the grammar. I'm looking at the content and whether it's got a main idea. Is there a problem here? Can we understand the problem? By watching an engineering class at college, a science-oriented studies at high school, and even a construction games corner in regular kindergarten, we can conclude since we are young, we fall into stereotypes that design us as who we are. And this is a really, really good point. This is a main idea here. Stereotypes that were designed. I support this claim. It's very clear. And personally, I can tell that when I was in high school studying physics, there was only one girl. Supported this idea that the stereotypes design us as who we are. How do we have a solution? There are many attitudes or ways of how we can reduce the difference between men and women, like forcing or helping them by benefits, companies to hire more. I think the biggest problem is by conscious. Well, here I don't think conscious, but it means awareness. Awareness, because here we really have a problem because conscious isn't the right word and that kind of confuses. And the solution must begin in childhood. And if we look here, there's a very clear connection between the problem and the solution. The stereotypes, college, high school, kindergarten. So the solution must begin in childhood by letting boys and girls playing in the same games. Maybe it won't be unusual if a girl will be interested in science and a boy will desire to feed a baby. So again, here is the solution. However, this isn't really the best support. The support should be more science-based and less in just interested or a boy desiring to feed a baby. So overall, we've got some very, very good points here. Let's go on to sample 3. Okay, so we see here already that it looks like a paragraph. And now I could begin again and say, okay, do I have a problem in the first paragraph? Do I have a solution in the second? What's the relationship between them? Dr. Carpenter claims that in the engineering field, females are not getting an equal chance as males. Now, this is a very good opening because she's relating, or he's relating, to what was seen. There are only a few professions that contain an equal amount of male and females. Well, here you might want to mention what they are. And only 5% of the engineers are women. Therefore, the engineering position may have a manly or male image, which may deter women to select this profession. So here we've really got, another really, really good idea. That there aren't enough women here, so women are put off or deterred from selecting this. And these days, the amount or the number of women studying the BSc in Israel is increasing, so it seems likely that in the future more women will be engaged in the problem. Okay, is this a problem or is that the solution? So maybe this really belongs here, and I'm not quite sure where this belongs. I'm just going to put this in green because it's not really part of the problem. I think that girls that reveal girls, it shows that girls in a young age, that we have to show, there's a problem here with the English, that we have to show girls at a young age the engineering professions. And that might be a solution. Lectures and presentations by women will be a good exposure for girls. Because of that, I believe in the future more girls will want to be engineers. And this basically might be better here. If we put this here and connect it, okay, then we might have a better idea. So here we start with deterring and saying, wait a second, but there's amount. And one way we can do it is to expose more girls to engineering, give them lectures, presentations, and it will change the image. It will become less manly and perhaps equally gender for both genders. Okay, so if we look here, again in sample 4, where does it begin? What could we do? So that very clearly shows me this is a solution, but do we need the title here? All the sentences are here. So we do that, and this is a very nice little way to begin each paragraph, because where does it begin? In other words, the problem. What could we do? The solution. Already, when children are in 2nd grade, they learn that girls can't do science and math. The girls are growing up with the feeling that they are not as good as boys. That attitude causes only 17% of engineering students are girls. In fact, our society operates according to stereotypes, and much worse is the implicit bias. Good use of a very key point brought up by Dr. Carpenter. And then here, in Israel, research shows that the same resume that's sent to a company referred to exactly, in other words, relates the problem, the general, and then specific into Israel. What could we do? So we know the solution is coming. I think that if the world wants to develop and we want to save our society from disasters like global warming and cancer, we need to educate ourselves to change attitudes. From a young age, we need to explain to girls that they can do anything they want and the sky is the limit. The companies and employers have to adopt an objective criteria for decisions about hiring, and we must give everyone equal opportunity. Very, very good. What we need here is to explain to girls that they can do anything they want, adopt criteria. We must give everyone an equal opportunity. And now here we need a concluding sentence. And by doing so, we will be on our road to solving the problem. And let's take one last look. And again, here we can clearly see that there are two paragraphs. Do they follow the problem? Do they follow the solution? Dr. Carpenter presents a problem in the USA Society of insufficient female representation in areas of STEM. She presents studies and resources, and she goes on and on and on, and talks about here. But what are we missing? What about Israel? This is what's in the United States, but what about Israel? Is the same problem here, and we've got that, but we have to wait to the problem in our second paragraph. So maybe this sentence should really go here so that it's very clear. Most people claim that there's a similar problem in Israel, and I think the same. And now we're ready for the solution. In my opinion, it starts in people's thoughts that females cannot study the areas of STEM. I think the solution for the problem is that we need to explain to society the importance of female perspective in solving problems. And she took Dr. Carpenter's idea, which is a great idea, but how? And finally, encourage girls to study STEM subjects. But here we need an example. Here we need an example. How are we going to encourage them? It's general. We need those minor details to support a major detail. The conclusion is that we have to encourage the young females to the areas of STEM, and that would solve the problem. So basically, although this repeats, which is fine, here we need clearer support. An example would be very, very helpful. So all in all, we see 5 examples of some very, very good pieces of writing when we're talking about its organization of ideas. We want the first paragraph to talk about the problem and the second paragraph to talk about the solution.